Somebody important, Robbie?
You could say that. You ever hear of Red Emma?
No, she.
Emma Goldman, queen of the anarchists. One bad piece of business. I'm sure you never heard of her.
Don't think so. Some kind of criminal? What'd she do?
You got a lot of learning to do, kid, if you're going to be of any use for the Red Squad. Emma Goldman might be the most dangerous woman in the world. Originally Russian, she lived in the States until they kicked her out. She's been spreading revolutionary anarchist propaganda for nearly 50 years.
But any actual criminal activity?
Well, she's had loads of run-ins with the law. Back in the 1890s, they sent her to jail for 2 years for whipping up a crowd of unemployed workers in New York City. She's one powerful speaker.
Do you not see the stupidity of asking relief from the government when immense wealth exists a stone's throw from here? Fifth Avenue is laid in gold. Every mansion is a citadel of money and power. Demonstrate before the palaces of the rich. Demand work. If they will not give you work, demand bread. If they deny you both, take bread. It is your sacred right.
They locked her up, but they couldn't shut her up. After she got out, she started doing lecture tours all across the state. She spoke to thousands of people, even some here in Toronto back before the war.
What'd she speak about?
Oh, she was spouting all sorts of radical crap about the evils of capitalism, free love, birth control, God knows what else. She was,
But
cops everywhere tried to shut her up. She got in trouble big time back in the war, the Great War, when she tried to speak out against the boys in the States signing up to fight.
A young man who out of a keen sincerity and idealism refuses to take arms for a cause he does not believe in is stronger than any and all governments that ever existed. Down with militarism and down with the state that cannot defend itself except through forced service.
That got her 2 years in jail. When she got out, they deported her back to Russia. That was 20 years ago now.
jeez, what a day. So what's she doing here?
I don't know exactly. That's why we're watching her. She used to live here a couple years back in the 20s, and then again about 5 years ago.
Maybe she's hoping to sneak back into the States?
Yeah, it could be. The U.S. government certainly doesn't want her back. What we've got to do is keep an eye on her so she doesn't use that silver tongue of hers to go up and stir trouble with the pinkos here in town. There's a small number of anarchists in Toronto. You know, mostly Jews and other foreigners. They don't cause that many problems. You know, actually the Jews and the Gentiles are in different camps and they don't really get along all that well. But who knows what schemes they'll be plotting with Red Emma back in town. So, keep a sharp eye on who shows up to greet her here.
Millie!
Oh, hi, so since you'll be able to make it. Hi, here comes Cecilio.
Ciao, Maurice! Ciao, Millie!
That dame was Emma Goldman's secretary last time she was in Toronto. And the older guy, he's head of the Jewish anarchists. And that young Italiano, oh, he's a real shit disturber. Making trouble with the fascists in town.
Her dream should be here any time now. I'm so excited to see her.
Me too, but I don't know what to expect. She's been through so much in the past few years since she's left Toronto. We may find that she's even grumpier and harder to get along with than ever.
Oh, she's tough on anyone that gets in her way. But under it all, she's just sweet and caring. She's been such an inspiration to me. When I was just a little girl, I heard her speak over in Hygeia Hall on Elm Street about women's rights. I spent all night thinking about it. She's helped me take a hold of my own life as a woman.
I demand the independence of woman, her right to support herself, to live for herself, to love whomever she pleases or as many as she pleases. I demand freedom for both the sexes. Freedom in action, freedom in love, and freedom in motherhood.
Yes, she sure could fire up your imagination with her lectures. Remember the ones about drama?
Yes.
She loved the playwrights that stirred things up, especially that Norwegian writer.
Henrik Ibsen was a revolutionist. His dramatic art was inconceivable without his glorious rebellion against every authoritative institution, against every social and moral lie, against every vestige of bondage. He loved truth and freedom.
Yes, and I remember hearing her talk about Hitler at Hygeia Hall.
Yes.
I was overwhelmed by the way she spoke. So much fire in her.
The Hitler regime will go down to defeat. It will go down because of public opinion in Germany gradually making itself evident, and world opinion. Because it is inconceivable that a group of people who belong in a lunatic asylum should be allowed to destroy through a reign of terror a country such as Germany.
Excuse me, I'm Robert Reed from the Toronto Star. Would any of you happen to know if Miss Goldman has arrived?
Her arrival is imminent.
Oh, in that case, would you mind if we took a photograph? For our readers.
Oh, there she is.
Welcome, my dear Emma.
Oh my, oh what a surprise! Hello, Morris, my dear old friend. Oh, and Attilio, so nice to see you. You too, Millie. My, but what a beautiful young woman you are becoming. I'm going to be needing your help again. Oh, so many friends. I never expected such a reception.
And how is your stop in Montreal?
Oh, it was so depressing. Our comrades there are nothing more than living corpses. They live in fear of the fascist padlock law that the provincial government has clamped on radical meetings. But I am certainly hoping for better results than this.
Hello, Miss Goldman. Robert Reed, Toronto Star. What brings you back to our fair city?
Well, I want to put the English people straight about what is happening in Spain. And I want to let them know that the struggle in Spain is by no means finished. I also want to arouse interest in the frightful condition of the Spanish refugees. Now, I'll be talking about this in my lecture at the Oddfellows Hall next Thursday night.
A quick question. I know you're busy, Miss Goldman. You've traveled far and wide across the world for decades, preaching the message of anarchism. I wonder, you must be exhausted. I wonder if you could have your time all over again, if you would have choose such a hard life again.
I would never take the easy way. I think that if I have any experience at all, if I have accumulated anything in my long struggle, it is that I am temperamentally unfitted for what you call the easy way. No, I'm still going on.
Okay, and just one final thing for our readers. Would you oblige with the photograph? Thank you, Miss Goldman. Good luck.
Come along. Let's... for those stirring words on the courageous struggle of the Spanish people against fascism. Now, does anyone here have a question for our speaker today? I recognize our alderman, J.B. Salzburg. Yes, Joe?
Well, comrades and friends, I can't sit here and listen to and just listen to all this loose talk about.
Tell her, Joe.
I can't sit here and listen to these gross distortions without rising to challenge Miss Goldman on some of her facts.
Come off it, Joe.
Well,
Sit down, Joe.
She's helping the fascists, Joe.
here we go. She would like us to believe that if the communists had had a different policy, the people's popular government in Spain would have been fine. But the fascists attacked and overran and hammered this government with its small army and with the absolute support of Benito Mussolini and Adolf Hitler. Friends, this was not a time for loose social experiments with anarchist communes.
Absolutely.
Everything had to be done. Everybody had to be mobilized to defend democracy.
No time for this.
And as a matter of fact, yes.
Come on, Joe, tell her.
Basically, what I want to tell you, Miss Goldman, is that there was only one government in the world at this point that supported Spain and fought to help it oppose fascism in that country, and that was the Soviet Union.
That's right. Well, the communists in Spain were following the orders of their dictator in Soviet Russia, Joseph Stalin. They were trying to introduce the same kind of state tyranny that I saw in Russia in the early 1920s. Well, we have to fight all types of tyranny, wherever we encounter it, if we are ever going to live in freedom and equality.
You are absolutely attacking and sullying the reputation of fine, brave Canadian communists and all the volunteers who fought and died on Spanish soil to oppose fascism. As we gather here tonight, friends, our wounded friends and comrades in the Mackenzie Papineau Battalion, some of them lay in our Toronto hospitals, some without legs or missing other limbs, others blinded by the absolutely terrifying battles that they had to wage against fascism, against Franco and his cohorts. When you attack communism in this way, Miss Goldman, you are aligning yourself with the fascist forces that are threatening democracy.
Exactly it.
It pains me to say this, but you're a reactionary. And you need to stop distorting the facts, and you need to stop sowing division within the democratic and anti-fascist movements.
Yes.
Stop the proceedings right now. Thank you all for coming. Have a good evening.
Well, I think I got my message across, and we did raise some money for the Spanish refugees. Thank you, Millie. You know, I have to say, I felt a new energy in speaking to that audience tonight. Something that never happened in the same way when I was in England. They didn't seem to care much for my message over there. But tonight, it felt more like the old days of my lecturing in America.
You were in fine form, Emma. But I'm just not sure about your next 4 lectures. There's a heat wave coming, and that always discourages people from sitting in stuffy halls. And worse yet, the King and Queen will be here in a few weeks for their royal tour. The crowd will be wild.
Oh, you Canadians are such lick-spittle monarchists and patriots. It's enough to turn my stomach. You know, I really don't know if this city will ever be good soil for my message. It seems to be getting more conservative all the time.
we just saw your birthday cake. It's so beautiful. Emma, you're crying. What's the matter?
Nothing to worry about, Dean. It's all right.
Emma, dear, tell me, what's upset you so much? What are those photographs you're looking at?
Some old photos of Sasha and I. You know Alexander Berkman?
Yes.
He was the most important person in my life since I arrived in New York City 50 years ago. He was my soulmate, my inspiration, my comrade. I loved him deeply. This photo was taken just before we were jailed in 1917 for opposing conscription. And, here we are in Saint-Tropez in southern France, sometime back in the 20s. 3 years ago today, on my birthday, he killed himself. He shot himself in the chest. I shall never fully recover from that loss. He took a large part of me with him to the grave.
Emma, we all know how hard that was on you. That's partly why we wanted to have this special party for your 70th birthday. All the comrades will be there tonight to show you how much we hold you deeply in our hearts and how important you still are to the movement.
Thank you, Dean. I'm so grateful for you and your husband for allowing me to take over this flat in your house. I've stayed in such dingy holes in the wall in my previous visits to Toronto, usually around Spadina Avenue. But you know, this time I'm really enjoying my privacy and comfort up here on Vaughan Road, where I can think and work in peace and quiet.
Ciao, Emma. I have the cart outside. Whenever you're ready, we go.
Oh, my thank you, Attilio. You are so kind to me. What could I ever do without you?
Oh, Emma, you should seal the letters and telegrams that you received for your birthday. Well wishers from far and wide. And they've sent you gifts of money to help you out too. You especially like the letter from the Spanish comrades. It's from the Movimiento Libertario Español, signed by their leader, your friend Mariano Vázquez.
Oh.
He says, you represent living and vibrant experience. You're the incarnation of the eternal flame of the ideal which you have demonstrated in your own life. Salute, Mother Emma.
Oh, my. I'm overwhelmed. Mariano is such a fine man and a good comrade. He is so important to the anarchist cause in Spain. And I worked closely with him over the past couple of years.
And there are many more. Listen to this.
Emma! Emma, I have terrible news. Mariano Vázquez is dead.
What? What happened?
It was a freak accident. He died while swimming near Paris.
Oh, no. Now my birthday marks a double tragedy. First Sasha, and now Mariano. I cared for him so much. He was like a child to me, like my own flesh and blood. The anarchist movement has suffered an irreparable loss. I don't know how I'll ever get through all the festivities that you good people have laid on for me today. I have faced so many setbacks in my efforts to make this world a better place. I thought that the revolution in Russia would bring us closer, but I was so deeply disappointed when I got there. I really thought that my vision of a better world had its best chance in Spain. Anarchy was a real movement there, and for a few precious months, our comrades in Catalonia were putting those principles into action. Now that has all been snuffed out. I'm so tired tired. I really need to rest over the summer. I need to see my family and friends. Oh, if only I could cross the border.
Do you think that's possible, Emma?
Not very likely. I have friends who are trying to get me a visa, but it seems that I would have to genuflect to President Roosevelt or else testify about communists before a congressional committee. Not a chance I'd do that. No. I have to do what I can here in Canada. I want to organize some kind of a cross-country speaking tour so I can raise awareness about what is happening in Spain and get funds for the Spanish refugees. You know, I've overcome my personal trials and tribulations before. I can't stop now. There's so much work to be done. Do you know what August the 15th is?
No, tell us, please.
Well, it's the day, in fact, the 50th anniversary of the day that I arrived in New York City and made my first direct contact with the anarchist movement. So, this year, I want to celebrate that date in Toronto and in cities across North America. We can use it to build up a fund, the Emma Goldman Spanish Relief Fund, to support our poor refugees who've escaped Franco. They are confined to foul camps in France. You know, I may be tired, and I may be 70, but I'm not stopping yet. But let's get out of here and get to that banquet. There's organizing to be done. And later, before the evening's over, we'll do some dancing.
I'm worried, Morris. Emma's spirit seems so low. She had visitors here from the States over the summer, and they really seemed to make her happier. But since they've gone, she's become so glum again.
She's had so many disappointments, and she doesn't seem to be enjoying her time here in Toronto at all.
Well, I hope you can cheer her up.
Toronto is such a bleak place. I am so terribly cut off from all intellectual contact. I grow so depressed and unhappy at times. It seems I can't stand it another day.
Hello, dear Emma. How are you?
Well, Morris, I see that you were finally able to tear yourself away from your construction business and your work with the Arbiter Ring. I haven't seen you in ages. Sometimes I wonder just how important the anarchist cause is to you.
Oh, Emma, isn't that a bit harsh? You know I'm delighted to be working with you again. You seem to be busy. What's that you're typing there?
Letters to my friends in the States and overseas. I miss them so much.
Well, that was a wonderful event a few nights ago, celebrating your introduction to the anarchist movement. You should be pleased.
I suppose so. There looked to be about 100 people there, and we did raise about $130 for Spanish relief. But I was so frustrated with you and the others that we had to keep delaying it. It hardly seemed like a 50th anniversary celebration in the end.
Oh, Emma, try and see the brighter side.
What brighter side, Morris? I feel gagged and fettered. Spain is being forgotten in this war fever now that Canada and the other so-called democracies have declared war on Hitler and Mussolini. At least Stalin's true colors are on display for all to see now that he's signed that pact with Hitler. Oh, you know, Did you hear them at the Arbiter Ring meeting the other night agreeing with me about Russia's shameful behavior? I have to keep hammering this message home. Looks like I'll be speaking in Winnipeg in a few weeks, but not likely anywhere else in Western Canada.
The war certainly does make our work much more difficult.
I hate war, and I fought against military conscription 20 years ago. It's more complicated this time. I won't stand in the way of anyone who wants to fight the fascists.
Oh, Emma. Hi, Mark. Something awful has happened. Remember that law that Parliament passed last week, the War Measures Act? The police have used it and have arrested Attilio and the 3 men that lived in his house.
Oh, no. What have they charged them with?
Possession and distribution of subversive literature. They've seized everything in the house, including a small printing press. Attilio's been charged with having 2 revolvers in his house.
Oh, this is outrageous. They can't scrap all civil liberties just because of this bloody war. We've got to do something about this. Morris, do you think that we could get that good lawyer that we were talking about recently?
Oh, you mean J.L. Cohen? Yes, he'd be perfect for the case. He's a progressive guy, and he's worked with lots of unions. I think I have his phone number. I'll call him right now.
Poor Attilio. I bet it's the fascists in the Italian community behind this. He's been fighting them here and in Windsor for years. He's been disrupting their meetings, exposing their front organizations. They absolutely hate him.
Yes, he is such a good man and so dedicated to our anarchist group here. And he's been so helpful to me, driving me everywhere. He's practically my personal chauffeur.
Cohen says he'll be here immediately.
Wonderful.
Oh, but he won't work for free. Where will we find the money?
Well, we'll reach out to everyone who wants to defend civil liberties. Our anarchist comrades across North America, labor unions, progressive liberals, well, Jewish and Italian organizations. I'll write to the leading Italian groups in Canada and the United States. And we can start up some sort of St. Bartolomé committee. I'll write articles for the major newspapers and magazines. Why, we have to let everyone know about this case and get them on board to free Attilio and the others in the name of personal freedom from state tyranny. Oh, Mr. Cohen, thank you for coming so quickly.
Hello, Miss Goldman. Pleasure to see you again.
Well, we have to get to work right away to get our Italian friends out of jail.
I certainly agree. I was actually thinking about this case when Morris called. I suspect the prosecution has thrown it together hastily. They probably don't even know what literature the cops picked up. And as for those guns that Attilio had, I'm sure there's a simple explanation.
There is. They're not his. I know that a friend of Attilio's asked him to fix his guns. He was a very skilled tool and die maker.
I'm sure we could get this case thrown out. Now, what's Bortolotti's immigration status?
Well, I'm not sure if he entered the country properly.
If that's true, they may try to deport him.
Oh, they can't send him back to Italy. The fascists will kill him. We've got to stop that.
I certainly will get started on this first thing in the morning.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Cohen. Millie, we have a lot of letters to write. Let's get started.
It's so nice that so many friends and comrades have shown up today.
It's not surprising. She inspired so many people who heard her speak here in Toronto. Her death has left a huge hole in our movement.
Everything since that Friday night in February, it just seems a blur to me. When I saw her slump over the card table, I couldn't imagine that she was having a cerebral hemorrhage.
She was never right again. The worst part for her was that she couldn't talk. one of the greatest orators of our time, was silenced for the last 3 months of her life.
I'm glad you were able to tell her that you remained deported last month. I saw her tears in her eyes when you said that.
She did so much to help me with that trial. So many fundraising letters, so much lobbying to defend civil liberties.
I know. I typed all those letters.
My greatest satisfaction in life would have been to see Emma Goldman living with me, and I could repay her with my daily work, with economic security, and yes, with an abundance of stamps for letters.
This is such a good place to have her memorial service. She lectured in this hall so many times. Who is going to speak?
Oh, that Progressive United Church minister. The one who worked so closely with Emma on Attilio's case. Salem Bland. Oh, here he is now.
Friends, let's get started. We are gathered here today to honor the memory of a remarkable woman, Emma Goldman. A sword might be laid across the coffin for this brave woman, for she was a brave soldier in the war for liberation. I count it as an honor to be permitted to pay a brief tribute to her. Naturally, in some respects, I was far from in agreement with her views or endorsing all her conduct. But I count it as a privilege to have known her, and I deeply respect her. I fancy no man or woman in her day had a keener sense of justice or a more passionate love of liberty. May she rest in peace.
Pretty big crowd here, and there's a lot more out on the street who couldn't get in. But they're gonna forget about Red Emma soon enough now that they've got a war to worry about.
I don't take any bets on that. This little bird shook up a lot of people's thinking. No doubt there'll be huge crowds out when they ship her body to Chicago. Emma Goldman might still be the most dangerous woman in the world.
No woman of her generation was more widely known or lived more fully than Emma Goldman. None clung more staunchly through adversity to her ideals, the Toronto Star.
Her name was linked, directly or indirectly, with every major act of violence against the existing order in the United States. The Toronto Telegram.
Emma Goldman, apostle of philosophical anarchism and of voluntary communism, was born in Russia and spent 33 years of her life in the United States, fighting for the ideals for which she suffered imprisonment, and was an incorrigible revolutionist to the end. The New York Times.
Emma Goldman had a powerful and seductive voice, and over 100,000 people heard her speak every year. She even turned a lot of newspapermen into anarchists. The Chicago Daily News.
The example of courage that she set during a lifetime should stiffen the backbone of the present generation in the fight that grows daily sharper against hysteria and hate. The New Republic.
'Tis the
Final conflict, let each stand in their place. The international working class shall be the human race.